The planet of Calthor was a place of legends, a world so ancient that even the stars themselves seemed to whisper of its forgotten history. For 1,000 years, no one dared to approach it. The reason was simple. At the heart of Calthor lay a prison, and in that prison, chained in eternal slumber, was a being of unimaginable power, a creature that could bend the very fabric of reality. It was called the dragon, and it had been captured long before humanity had even discovered the stars. For centuries, the galaxy's greatest minds had pondered the nature of the dragon. Was it a god, a demon, or something else entirely? No one knew for sure. All they knew was that the dragon's chains were unbreakable, and the planet was a forbidden place. Its name spoken only in hushed tones. The stories were filled with fear, mystery, and no one had dared approach for fear of awakening the beast and unleashing its wrath. But the legends, as powerful as they were, had become just that, stories. Myths that only the oldest books and memories held. To the newer generations of the galaxy, Calthor was just another empty, desolate world, a place where nothing important ever happened. That is, until the signal came. Captain Leah Valen stood on the bridge of her ship, the Vanguard, staring out at the swirling depths of space. The stars were countless, and the vast emptiness of the galaxy seemed endless. But in the corner of her mind, she couldn't shake the thought that the universe was far from empty. There were still mysteries waiting to be uncovered, secrets to be discovered. That's why she was here, leading this mission into the unknown. The signal had been faint at first, barely noticeable against the hum of space. A strange energy pulse coming from Calthor, the forbidden planet. At first, the Federation had dismissed it. A glitch in the data, maybe? A solar flare? But as the signal grew stronger, the Council had taken notice. The mystery was too big to ignore. Leah had been given the command. She wasn't just any captain. She was one of the best, chosen for her calm under pressure and her unshakable resolve. Leading this mission was a huge responsibility. If they discovered something valuable, it could change the course of history. If they didn't, well, at least they'd have answers. Now, here she was, crossing the final frontier toward Calthor, a place few had ever even dared to imagine. The crew, a group of highly trained explorers, looked to her for guidance. Some were nervous, others excited, but Leah remained calm. She had seen her fair share of dangerous missions before, and she wasn't about to let fear cloud her judgment. "Captain," said Ensign Ryo, a young communications officer, his voice breaking through the silence. "The signal. It's coming from the planet's surface. Stronger now. It's almost like a beacon." Leah nodded, turning to look at him. "Are we getting any other signs of life? Any communication?" Ryo checked his console. "Nothing. Just the signal. And it's strange. It's not like any transmission I've ever seen. There's something ancient about it." Leah felt a shiver run down her spine. Something ancient. Those words seemed to hang in the air, filled with meaning. What if the legends were true? What if the dragon was real? What if the chains, those unbreakable chains, were not just a part of history, but the very thing calling them to Calthor? "Prepare to land, Ensign," she ordered, her voice steady. "We need to investigate this signal up close. But be cautious. We don't know what we're dealing with yet." The ship descended toward the planet's surface, and as they neared the landing site, the team's excitement turned into a heavy silence. Calthor's surface was barren, dry. Cracked soil stretched for miles, with no sign of life. The atmosphere was thin, and the planet felt cold and dead. It seemed impossible that anything could live here, let alone something as powerful as the dragon. As the Vanguard touched down, Leah's boots hit the ground first. The air was still, almost suffocating in its silence. The ground beneath them was cracked, like the skin of a long-dead creature, and the wind carried the scent of dust and ancient secrets. The crew followed her down, their steps cautious, their eyes scanning the horizon. They were standing at the edge of a vast Runan ancient city that had been lost to time. The buildings were crumbled, their once grand designs now little more than piles of stone and metal. There were no signs of life here, no animals, no plants, not even insects. Just the eerie quiet of a place that had been forgotten by history. But at the center of the ruins, Something that caught the crew's attention immediately. It was massive, towering over them like a monument to forgotten gods. Long chains, made of a strange, metallic material that glowed faintly, wrapped around a massive stone pillar. At the center of it all, there was something they couldn't quite make out a silhouette, barely visible through the layers of dust and decay. Is that what we came here for?" whispered Dr. Mirasolis, the mission scientist, her voice filled with awe. Leah didn't answer right away. She was too focused on the chains. There was something about them that felt wrong, as if they were alive. The closer they got, the more oppressive the air became. She could almost feel the weight of centuries pressing down on her. "Let's get a closer look," Leah said, her voice firm, as she motioned for the team to follow her. The closer they got to the chains, the more Leah felt it a pull, an almost magnetic force drawing her toward them. She shook her head, trying to shake the sensation off, but it didn't go away. It only grew stronger. When they reached the chains, the team spread out, examining the strange material. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, smooth yet jagged, glowing with an inner light that seemed to flicker like a dying star. Dr. Solis touched one of the chains, and for a moment, the entire planet seemed to tremble. The chains vibrated with a deep hum, a sound that resonated deep within their bones. The air crackled with energy, and a voice soft and distant echoed in their minds. "You have come. At last, you have come." The crew froze. Leah's heart raced. She looked at her team, trying to make sense of what was happening. But no one spoke. They didn't need to. They all knew. The dragon was real, and it had just awoken. The planet shook again, this time with a force that seemed to echo from the very core of Calthar. The vibrations sent dust and debris swirling around the crew, and for a brief moment, it felt as though the ground beneath them might collapse. The chains, once still and lifeless, now hummed with a deep, resonating energy, their glowing surface flickering like the pulse of a distant star. "Everyone, fall back," Captain Leah Valen shouted, her voice cutting through the rising panic. But no one moved. They were all rooted to the spot, their eyes locked on the chains, unable to look away from the unnatural hum that filled the air. Dr. Mirasolis was the first to speak, her voice trembling slightly. This isn't just some artifact. This is something more. These chains, they're alive." Leah's heart raced, her mind trying to process the reality of what she was seeing. She had expected to find relics, maybe signs of an ancient civilization, but this was something entirely different. The chains were not just objects of metal. They were something far older, something far more powerful. The hum of the chains grew louder, more intense. Leah could feel it in her bones, vibrating through her very being. And then, without warning, the air around them shifted. It was as if the very atmosphere had changed, becoming heavier, more oppressive. The hairs on the back of Leah's neck stood on end, and her breath caught in her throat. It was then that Sergeant Jax stepped forward, his hand reaching toward one of the chains. I need to know what this is," he muttered, his voice distant, as if he were in a trance. "Jax." "Wait," Leah called, but it was too late. Jax's fingers brushed against the chain, and the instant he made contact, a pulse of energy shot through him. His body went rigid, his eyes wide with shock, and a sharp gasp escaped his lips. The world around him seemed to shudder, bending and warping as if the very fabric of reality was being torn apart. Leah felt a wave of dizziness crash over her. She stumbled back, barely able to keep her balance as the ground trembled beneath her. Jax fell to his knees, his body trembling from the surge of energy. And then, without warning, he collapsed to the ground. "Jax!" Leah yelled, rushing to his side. She knelt beside him, her heart pounding in her chest. His skin was pale, his breath shallow, and his eyes were wide open, staring into nothingness. For a moment, Leah feared the worst. But then Jax's lips parted, and a faint, raspy voice escaped. It showed me everything. What did you see?" Leah asked urgently, her mind racing. She could feel the tension building, the sense that they were on the verge of something enormous, something dangerous. Jax's eyes slowly focused, and for a moment, he seemed disoriented. Then, As though the words were coming from somewhere deep within him, he spoke. It wasn't just a chain. It was a seal. The dragon is not just a creature. It is older than time. A force of nature, a being that once shaped the universe itself. Jax's voice grew quieter, his words thick with awe. The chains were made to bind it, not to imprison it, but to keep it from destroying everything. The air around them seemed to grow heavier still, as if the planet itself were listening to Jax's words. Leah could feel the weight of his revelation pressing down on her. The dragon, an ancient force older than time itself. She had always believed that the myths were just that, stories, born of fear and imagination. But now, she was starting to believe something far darker. Why was it bound? Dr. Solis asked, stepping forward with a mixture of fear and fascination in her voice. Jax's eyes fluttered as if he were reliving the vision again. Because the dragon was too powerful. It didn't care for life or death. It bent the stars to its will, destroyed civilizations without thought. It was a force that could reshape reality itself. Leah took a step back, her mind spinning with the weight of what Jax was saying. She had known that Calthor held secrets, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The dragon wasn't just a beast. It was a cosmic entity, something that had once ruled over the universe itself. What now? Sergeant Jax asked, his voice hoarse. What are we supposed to do with this? This power? Leah didn't know how to answer. The gravity of their discovery was too much to process all at once. They had come to Calthor in search of answers, but they had found something far more terrifying than they could have imagined. We need to find out more, Leah said, trying to steady her voice. We need to understand everything before it's too late. As the crew gathered around, trying to make sense of Jax's vision, the air around them seemed to grow colder, and the ground beneath their feet felt even more unstable. It was as if the planet itself were reacting to their presence, to the awakening of the dragon. The ancient prison was not just a symbol of fear, it was a warning. Leah motioned for the crew to move further into the ruins, hoping that they could find anything that could help them make sense of this new, terrifying reality. As they walked deeper into the ruins, the feeling of unease only grew stronger. The walls of the crumbled buildings seemed to whisper, and the air felt thick with a presence that couldn't be ignored. Captain, Dr. Solis said quietly, pulling Leah aside. We've only seen a small part of this place. There has to be more. If the dragon is as ancient as Jax saw, then there must be records. Anything that can explain why it was bound here. Why this planet was chosen. Leah nodded, her mind racing. She knew Dr. Solis was right. There had to be more, and if they could uncover it, they might finally understand what they were dealing with. But as they ventured deeper into the ruins, Leah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. That something, or someone, was waiting for them. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the ruins, followed by a low rumble. The ground trembled again, more violently this time, as if the planet were awakening from a long slumber. And then, in the distance, a dark figure appeared, tall, cloaked in shadows, moving with a strange grace. Leah's pulse quickened. Whatever they had uncovered, they were not alone. The dark figure in the distance moved slowly, its form shifting like smoke in the pale light. At first, Leah thought it might be one of the crew. Perhaps one of them had strayed too far ahead. But no, there was something about the figure that made her uneasy. It was too tall, too still, and the shadows clung to it unnaturally, as if the figure itself was part of the darkness. Captain, look, said Ensign Ryo, his voice shaky. He had his blaster raised, his eyes locked on the shape ahead. What is that? Leah raised her hand, signaling the crew to stay back. Her instincts told her to be cautious. She had no idea who or what this figure was, but something deep inside her told her it wasn't good. The figure moved closer, and Leah could now see that it was a humanoid shape. Though its features were obscured by the dark cloak it wore, there was something unsettling about the way it glided over the ground, as if it didn't touch it at all. Stay close, Leah ordered quietly. She moved toward the figure, her hand on the weapon at her side. The rest of the crew followed her cautiously, eyes darting from the figure to the dark, crumbling ruins around them. When the figure was only a few meters away, it stopped. There was an eerie silence as it stood before them, its hooded head turned slightly to one side. Studying them, Leah felt a chill creep down her spine. "Who are you?" Leah demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. She didn't know if she was talking to a person, an alien, or something far worse. But she had to know. The figure didn't respond immediately. Instead, it reached up and pulled back its hood, revealing a face that seemed to flicker in and out of focus, like a hologram struggling to stabilize. The face was human almost, but there was something wrong with it. Its eyes were pale, glowing faintly, and its skin was ashen, almost translucent. "I'm Neroth, guardian of the chains," the figure finally spoke, its voice a low, almost musical hum. "I am bound to this place, just as the dragon is bound." A cold silence fell over the group. The name Neroth was unfamiliar to them, but the title Guardian of the Chains was something they all recognized. It had been mentioned in the ancient texts they had studied before landing on Kauthar, but they had thought it was just a myth, a part of the stories that surrounded the dragon. Leah stepped forward, trying to keep her fear under control. "You're the one who's been guarding the dragon." Neroth's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "Yes, for eons, I have stood watch. I have kept the dragon sealed away, as it was intended. But now the chains weaken. The dragon stirs once more." The words sent a chill through Leah. She could feel the weight of Neroth's words, a sense of inevitability hanging in the air. The dragon was waking, and once it awoke, nothing would be the same again. "Why now?" Leah asked, her voice strained. "Why has it started to stir?" The chains were supposed to hold it forever." Neroth's form flickered again, as if struggling to maintain its presence. "The chains were never meant to last forever. They were forged by the ancients, but their strength fades with time. They were never unbreakable. The dragon's power is too great. It was bound to this world to keep it contained, but the time has come. The seals are breaking." Leah felt her stomach twist. The dragon, once a myth, now a reality, and its awakening meant the power of the universe itself was about to shift. The balance that had been maintained for so long was about to collapse. "What happens if the dragon is freed?" Dr. Solis asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The scientist had always been the one to focus on the facts, but now, even she couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. "The dragon is no mere creature," Neroth replied. "It is a force, a being of unimaginable power. It can reshape the fabric of reality. It could unravel entire civilizations with a single thought. When it wakes, it will destroy everything in its path unless it is stopped." Leah felt the weight of those words pressed down on her. The mission she had thought was simply a strange signal. A forgotten planet had turned into something far more dangerous. She had come here seeking answers, but now, she was realizing that they might have awakened something beyond their control. "What do we do?" Sergeant Jax asked, his voice low. He had been the one to touch the chains, and now he seemed lost, his mind still struggling to comprehend the vision the dragon had shown him. Neroth tilted its head, studying the group. "You must choose," it said. "The dragon is not a creature to be tamed. It will not be controlled. If you wish to stop it, you must understand its power. But beware, to challenge the dragon is to risk everything." Leah's heart pounded in her chest. The fate of the galaxy could be at stake, and here they were, standing before the guardian of the chains, trying to figure out what to do next. "We need to know everything," Leah said firmly. "We need to understand how the dragon can be stopped before it's too late." Neroth's glowing eyes seemed to look deep into her soul. "Very well," it said, its voice echoing in the silence. "I will show you, but remember, knowledge comes with a price. Are you prepared to pay it?" The crew stood still, absorbing the weight of Neroth's words. Leah knew there was no turning back now. They were already too deep into this mystery, and the only way forward was to uncover everything they could about the dragon and its power. Leah took a deep breath and nodded. "Show us." The figure raised its hands, and the air around them shimmered. Suddenly, visions filled Leah's mind, flashes of cosmic destruction, of stars collapsing, of entire civilizations falling to dust. The dragon was at the center of it all, its power surging through the universe, reshaping everything in its path. But there was something more. Leah saw the chains, not just as restraints, but as a key that could either seal the dragon away forever or unlock its full power, unleashing destruction on an unimaginable scale. When the vision ended, Leah felt a sense of clarity, but also a deep, gnawing fear. The knowledge they sought was both a blessing and a curse. She now understood the stakes and the responsibility that came with them. The dragon's chains are the key, Neroth said, its voice softer now. If you wish to prevent its awakening, you must find a way to strengthen them once more. But be warned, to do so will require sacrifices. Leah knew they had no choice. They had to stop the dragon, no matter the cost. The silence in the ruins was deafening. The crew stood in a tense circle, their minds reeling from the vision they had just witnessed. Leah felt the weight of it all pressing down on her, each passing second dragging them closer to an unknown fate. The dragon's power, the chains. Neroth's words, they were all pieces of a puzzle that didn't seem to have a clear solution. And the stakes were higher than she could have imagined. Captain, what do we do now? Jax's voice broke through the quiet, and Leah saw the confusion in his eyes. It mirrored her own. They had come to Calthor with one mission in mind, to investigate the strange signal. Now, they were standing on the edge of something far more dangerous. A force beyond their comprehension was waking, and the universe itself was at risk. Leah's gaze swept over the team. They had already seen the truth. The dragon was real. Neroth, the Guardian, had told them that the only way to stop it from destroying everything was to strengthen the chains. But how, and more importantly, could they even succeed before the dragon fully awoke? She shook her head. We need to find a way to stop the dragon. We can't just leave it here, unchained. Dr. Solis stepped forward, her face pale but resolute. But strengthening the chains. That's impossible, isn't it? The dragon's power is beyond anything we've ever encountered. Leah turned to face her. I don't know. But if there's a way, we have to find it. Neroth said there's a way to do it, but she hesitated. It comes with a price. The price, Jax muttered, his face still pale from his earlier experience with the chains. What kind of price are we talking about? Neroth, who had been silent for some time, stepped forward, its form flickering with the soft glow of its energy. Its eyes seemed to pierce through each of them, one by one. The price is not one that can be avoided. To strengthen the chains, you must offer something in return. The dragon's power cannot be contained without a sacrifice. There must always be balance. Leah's heart skipped a beat. Sacrifice? The word hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. What kind of sacrifice? She asked, trying to steady her voice. She didn't want to believe it, but deep down, she feared she already knew the answer. Neroth's voice was calm, almost too calm. The dragon's power is tied to the very fabric of the universe. To restrain it again, to bind it as it once was, you must offer something that holds equal value. Life, energy, power. The chains will need a new anchor, something to replace what is lost. It will require a soul, a living essence. The crew stood frozen. Leah felt the cold grip of dread tightening around her chest. A soul, a living essence. The thought of offering someone's life to stop the dragon, she couldn't bear it. No. Dr. Solis whispered, shaking her head. We can't, this is wrong. We can't just take someone's life to stop the dragon. There has to be another way. Leah understood the scientist's reaction. It was hard to even fathom the idea of such a sacrifice. But they were running out of time. The dragon was waking, and the longer they waited, the stronger it would become. Is there no other way? Leah asked, her voice shaking with the weight of her decision. Neroth's form flickered again, and for a moment, it seemed almost sorrowful. There is no other way. You cannot fight the dragon's nature. It must be contained, or all will be lost. Leah turned to her crew, her mind racing. They had already come so far, and now the choice before them was a heavy one. Would they sacrifice a life to save countless others? Or would they abandon the mission, leave the dragon free, and risk the destruction of the galaxy? I need to think, Leah said, her voice quiet. She stepped away from the group, needing space to clear her head. The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but respected her decision to take a moment. As Leah walked among the ruins, Her thoughts were a whirlwind. She had always believed that the right decision was the one that protected people, the one that saved lives. But now, the line between right and wrong seemed blurred. The dragon was a force of nature, something beyond their control. And without stopping it, the destruction it could cause would be unimaginable. Could she really condemn one life to save billions? She stopped at the base of the massive pillar that held the chains, her fingers brushing lightly against the strange, glowing metal. The pulse of the chains seemed to respond to her touch, faint but undeniable. Was she willing to make this sacrifice? Was any of them? Suddenly, she felt a presence beside her. She turned to find Sergeant Jax standing silently, his eyes full of concern. Despite the fear that had gripped him since touching the chains, he had remained loyal, steadfast. "What's going on inside your head, Captain?" Jax asked quietly, his voice steady. Leah sighed deeply, feeling the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. "I don't know if I can do this. The price. It's too high." Jax nodded slowly. "It's not an easy choice. No one should have to make it. But you know what will happen if we leave it. If we don't stop the dragon now, everything we know, everything we've fought for, will be gone." Leah turned back to the chains. She could feel their power now, pulsing like a heartbeat in the ground beneath her feet. She could almost hear the dragon's voice in her mind, calling to her. The universe was on the brink of something terrible, and they were the ones who had to stop it. "I can't make this decision alone," Leah whispered, her voice filled with doubt. "I need to know what you all think. We're a team, this is our decision together." Jack stepped closer, his expression serious. "Captain, if there's a way to stop it, we have to take it. The galaxy depends on us." Leah nodded slowly, her mind made up. "All right, we'll do it. We'll make the sacrifice." But as she said the words, a part of her felt the weight of them more than she ever had before. The dragon's chains had to be restored, and someone would have to give up a life to do it. But who, and at what cost? The decision was made, but it felt like a weight too heavy to bear. Leah stood before the massive pillar that held the dragon's chains. The air around her charged with an ancient power. The ground beneath her feet trembled with each passing second, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for her next move. The crew stood in silence behind her, each person lost in their own thoughts. They had come to Calthor with one purpose, to investigate a strange signal. Now, they found themselves in a battle against time and a cosmic force that no one could truly comprehend. Leah turned to face her team. They had all seen what the dragon could do, had all felt its power, and they knew what was at stake. They couldn't just leave. The dragon's awakening would bring destruction on a scale no one could imagine. But the price was still haunting them. Who would give up a life to strengthen the chains? Who would make that sacrifice? She felt her heart race as she spoke, her voice steady but filled with the weight of the moment. "We've all seen the truth. The dragon is a force we can't control. We can't let it destroy everything. But someone has to make the sacrifice. We all know that." The silence was deafening. The crew exchanged glances, but no one spoke. Leah could see the fear in their eyes, the same fear she felt. But there was no other choice. She had to believe that this was the only way. "I'll do it," Sergeant Jax said, breaking the silence. His voice was firm, unwavering. "I touched the chains first. The dragon showed me everything. I knew what we were up against. I'll make the sacrifice." Leah looked at him, her heart heavy. She had known Jax long enough to know how much this decision weighed on him. He had always been the first to act, the one who never hesitated in the face of danger. But this was different. This was a choice that would change everything. "No," Leah said softly, shaking her head. "I won't let you do this. This isn't your burden to carry." Jax looked at her, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. "You don't have a choice, Captain. I know what needs to be done, and I won't let anyone else carry this weight. We've all come this far together. It's my turn to finish this." Leah's heart ached. She had always trusted Jax, and she knew he was right. But that didn't make the decision any easier. She stepped closer to him, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't have to do this. There's still time to find another way." Jax shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "There is no other way, Captain. I know that. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for the future. For everyone. Leah wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that there had to be another solution. But she knew deep down that Jax was right. The dragon was too powerful. The only way to stop it was to bind it once again, and that required a sacrifice. She took a deep breath and turned to Neroth, who stood silently nearby. The guardian of the chains had been watching them closely, its glowing eyes filled with both sorrow and acceptance. You know what needs to be done, Leah said, her voice resolute. Show us how to strengthen the chains. We'll do whatever it takes. Neroth nodded, its form flickering as if in agreement. The power to bind the dragon once more lies within the chains. But the sacrifice must be made willingly. The life force given will act as the new anchor, binding the dragon's power and preventing it from destroying all. Leah stepped forward, her gaze locked on the chains. The glow of the metal seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if it were waiting for them to make the final choice. She could feel the weight of the universe pressing down on her. There was no turning back now. Jax, Leah said, her voice soft but steady. Are you sure? This is your life we're talking about. Jax nodded. I'm sure. This is the only way. You know it too, Captain. We've all seen what happens if we fail. Leah's heart broke as she watched him step toward the chains. He had always been the strong one, the protector. And now, he was giving everything to save them all. She couldn't imagine what he was feeling, knowing that this would be the last time he would walk among the living. But she understood his resolve. They had all come so far together, and now the only way forward was through this sacrifice. The air around them grew heavier, the tension palpable as Jax placed his hands on the chains. The metal seemed to hum, reacting to his touch. Leah stepped back, her heart racing. The world seemed to hold its breath. Neroth's voice filled the air, its tone solemn. The binding begins. The sacrifice is made. Prepare yourselves. As Jax pressed his hands against the chains, a brilliant light erupted from the metal, filling the room with an intense glow. The ground beneath them trembled as the chains began to shift and move, wrapping around Jax's body. His form flickered in and out of sight as the power of the dragon surged through him. Leah could see the strain on his face, the pain in his eyes, but he never faltered. He didn't look away. This is it, Jax whispered, his voice strained but strong. This is for all of us. Leah watched helplessly as the chains tightened around him, the light growing brighter, blinding. The air crackled with energy, and she could feel the dragon's power being contained. Slowly but surely, by Jax's sacrifice. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the light dimmed. The chains settled back into place, the hum of energy fading into a deep silence. Jax collapsed at his knees, his body limp. But the chains were stronger now. The dragon had been bound once more. Leah rushed to his side, her hands trembling as she checked for a pulse. He was still alive, but barely. The power of the sacrifice had drained him, leaving him weakened but not entirely gone. Jax, she whispered, tears in her eyes. You did it. You saved us. Jax managed a weak smile, his eyes still filled with that quiet determination. It was worth it. The universe will be safe. That's all that matters. Leah knelt beside him, holding his hand tightly. She didn't know how long they would be able to keep the dragon bound. But they had bought the galaxy time. Time to rebuild, to grow, to prepare for whatever came next. As she looked at the chains, now solid and unmoving, Leah realized that humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. The dragon had been a force of destruction. But they had shown that even the most powerful beings could be stopped not through force, but through sacrifice, through the strength of the human spirit. And in that moment, Leah knew that humanity's destiny had just begun.